The big bald man buys baseball bats during winter. I couldn't think of it.
I was waiting for a season that starts
I was like,
with
fuck.
B. Oh my God. That's a great intro.
I was thinking of like Anchorman when he's like doing the warm up or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Right, is this
Bouncing biscuits baked on a beautiful
bun?
Something to scream about.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Something to Scream About. This is episode 25. We've made a quarter of a century. We're 25% loaded. I don't know what that analogy was, but anyway.
I wasn't even listening. I was zoned out.
25. Episode 25. Big achievement. Pretty proud of that. Once a month. That's been 25 months. So pretty solid.
God. We're doing the podcast more than we're doing music. Well, we're doing music a lot, but...
Yeah. There's more episodes than songs. But anyway. Yeah. Welcome to the episode. We're super stoked to once again have a really special, interesting guest coming on today's episode. But first... let's talk some housekeeping.
What? Cam?
Yeah, that's why I always go over to Cam for housekeeping.
I was watching that last on the Nick episode the other time, and you're like, so, Cam? And he's like, looked at me, and I was like, oh my God. Not too much again, guys, I mean, that we can, talk about yet. A lot of things behind the scenes, but mostly I would say we're in a really good writing phase at the moment. We've moved a lot of puzzle pieces around. We have been networking a lot, and we've sort of circled back to our original roots of music, of where we came from like our original EP. So we've essentially just come back to what made us join together as a band in the first place, putting together Jordan's music experience, my music experience, and just getting back to old school to sort of views, but better. Just better mixing, better playing, better drumming, better everything.
It's just bringing a 2.0 kind of vibe, which is really cool. It's bringing that excitement back, which is sick. But talking about that sort of writing phase, and thinking about that lately, it's got me sort of thinking about a lot of bands that tend to sort of stick within a certain writing structure, and they tend to sort of either sit where it's comfortable or sit where they think other people are writing, and that's where they should be as well. And it might not be suited to what they actually feel is representing them. So I thought we could talk about a few things with our own preferences, both where we feel comfortable or really uncomfortable with certain writing styles or BPMs, keys and things like this. So we'll start with maybe if I can ask you what your favorite sort of BPM is to write in or play in.
I like 92.
That's so 92.157.
92.157.
Yeah.
No, 92 because a lot of hip hop, boom bap, old school instrumentals is about 90 BPM.
True.
This up a little bit. There we go. So yeah, I just feel like what you can do with 92 is when you double it, it's 184, right? I hope that math is right. I was looking like an idiot. Yeah, no. So what you can do is it allows you to go into halftime sort of trap beats, hip hop beats, where you can have that hip hop influence into it, but then when you want to go towards the metal side, you sort of play more towards as if the BPM was 184, and you can play faster, pick faster, so this like the song sort of speeds up, but it's still in the same timing signature.
Yeah, so, and you can also do like two-step and drum and bass, which is all up that kind of BPM, 170, 180. Yeah, I'm very similar with that. It's kind of that bouncy feel. So even like right down to 75, 80 BPM up, so that's doubled 150, 160. Like that kind of range for me is super cool. It's bouncy. Yeah. It's the ability to throw the funky stuff in.
Yeah, that's the main key for our music as well is we can double it, right?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to songs like Glitch, which is technically 208 BPM, when you play it to the proper metronome scaling and stuff, it's that's when you can't really you start or for me personally anyway. I mean, I know people, if they're really good, I can play 240 BPM.
Yeah.
Well, good for you, buddy. But for me, like anything, as soon as I get over 205 BPM, 204 BPM, I'm like, crap, this is like starting to
Yeah.
get quick. Like we've played at 120 BPM,
Yes.
right? So we've got songs at 120. Catalyst, I believe, is 120, and some of the new stuff we've written is 122, 128, which is like that deep house
Yeah.
kind of
that
stuff.
kind
But
of house.
we're not playing the double. We're only playing the
Yes, and
128.
I remember like even in some of the writing phases for those songs, trying to throw in little snippets of like 30-second notes or 16ths or whatever
And you're like,
that,
holy
that match
crap.
up to double that, and I'm like, this is intense.
Yeah.
And just to get the accuracy and the fitness up to be able to play some of those
And you need
things, like
freaking drum triggers and all that to go like, brrrr, and all that
to get
sort
the
of
power
stuff.
that's that fast. And
Unless
I
you're-
envy the guys that can do it. They just sort of
Some
flutter
people
their feet.
can. Some people can. You're like, dude, you're amazing.
Yeah, but that's like, yeah, for us, basically that's the same then. We're pretty uncomfortable above a certain
And that's
like
when you can
double
take,
speed.
yeah, you can take stuff away from like when Nick was talking about it on the North Lane episode. Where you just sort of go, okay, where am I comfortable and where do I play the best? While still, trying to push your limits and push the boundaries of what you can achieve, but not just playing something just to flex. Like, it's not just insanely flexy parts where, you're just being like, look how quick I can pick, like, oh my God, I'm the best drummer and guitar player in the world. It's more like, hey, where do we have the most fun? And where can we express ourselves in the most ranges that we're comfortable with? So, but yeah, definitely being able to double the BPM
And halftime it,
halftime it of however you're playing, I think is important for our stuff.
I love a lot of space too in between stuff. So like giving the snare a lot of room and sort of just like halftime feels that have that kind of really broken space.
Funny enough, the vocals tend to swap too. Like when the beat's faster, the vocals tend to do less.
Yeah.
And when the beat's slower, the vocals tend to do more. Like when
That's
the beat's on like a God, I'll be like, and the way I'm never letting any motherfucker about it, but then I'm never gonna win. It's like, but then on the fast part, it's more like, it's like, it's less. Like you're doing less vocally.
Yeah, I suppose that's just a way of mixing up the different rhythms and styles and stuff. What about like key? Like in terms of your favorite keys to write in, or is there a key that fits, say, your vocal style a little bit better? Or
I think the rap stuff, like the rap, not the screaming or the metal side of it, the pure rap stuff works really well in A and B. Pretty much all of our A and B songs, the rapping just wherever my voice naturally sits, it tends to work really well. But in regards to playing, I really like probably drop B is really nice because it's low and heavy, but it's also the highest tuning we play. So it's kind of like a breath of fresh air when we go from that low, muddy tuning stuff to play something a bit more clarity. And you can play chord shapes and there's a lot more note clarity in the notes and it's nice. But then also I love going down to that double drop D sharp because the way that you actually play guitar is different for me anyway. Like I'll play singular notes instead of chords because chords just get lost in this. Even if heaps of EQ and you clean the mud and you're doing everything you can, it's just such a low fucking tuning. It's like you make sacrifices, but it's also you get a different sound. It almost doesn't even sound like a guitar anymore. It kind of sounds like a synth.
It's just so like so low.
Yeah, so those two being able to go through the different styles of playing, like more you pick one note at a time or one string at a time to not have as much mud in there. But because the strings are thicker gauge and stuff as well, and lower tunings, you can play differently and more genty, I suppose, more like syncopated, like but Morse Cody type stuff.
True. So if that's where you're comfortable, is there any sort of key or things that feel like they're not very, it's not your style, or is it more like a tuning? Like, how you can have weird tunings where it's set up with drop and then into standard in the one thing, or
I want to start experimenting with that stuff on our new stuff because I was learning it may have been Wage War, or it may have been it was I Prevail. I Prevail Choke, and it's in standard C tuning, but then there's a part of it where it goes bow, 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 and he tunes down as he plays it. So it's
Oh,
bow, 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 and then he fucking tunes it back up to C again,
wow.
which is like hard to do
Yeah.
properly. But they probably did it in post, I would assume, to make it perfect.
True. And
But
then he just, in the videos, just cranking it.
I've seen people do covers of it, and that's what they do. They go, wow, wow, and
I'm
they
sure
turn it
it's
down.
all right if you know
Yeah.
kind of, you
I
just
can't do
listen
it-
for it.
I
But
can't do it with mine because I got a Floyd Rose.
yeah,
But
true.
because of the lock and tuner thingies. But yeah, but stuff like that where it's just different. Like it's like when North Lane does, they play an open, but instead of bending the first fret, I've seen them bend above the fret, like
Yeah.
above the nut fucking thing, whatever it's called, the bridge
Yeah,
nut thing.
right up the very, very top.
Yeah, and then they can make the open note go wow, 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 wow.
It's
And I was
clever.
like, oh,
It's like
that's
a
cool.
whammy bar on the top, essentially.
kinda,
Or like
yeah.
kind of what you're doing there.
Mm.
Yeah, that's very cool. Well, actually, we can ask that to our guest, who's coming on very, very soon. His name's Michael. Michael P. I don't want to say his last name because it's very hard to pronounce.
He
Maybe
always
I'll ask him
he
that.
always doxes people on this. Like
This is
Ben,
this is
he
difficult.
gave Ben's full name, his
Yeah.
address, where he lives.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna give out all of your details when
And
you
Ben's
come
like,
on.
dude, can you not
Yeah.
fucking tell people where I live?
Sorry, Ben. Sorry. Anyway,
Third eye visuals.
yeah, third eye visual. That was the old. Stop! You're ruining it. This is Michael. He's a guitar tech, a touring guitar tech or technician. And the reason why I thought he would be a wicked guest is because not only have I sort of followed him for a little while, seeing him start touring with North Lane, obviously one of the bands that we follow, and I sort of watched his journey of growing through the tours with them and learning the new things and sort of seeing that on his socials, which was really cool. So I reached out to him and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming in?" Obviously, he's stoked to be having him on. So he is gonna explain a little bit what it's like to tour with someone like North Lane and provide the support that the guitar or guitarists need, and down to how to look after your guitars, how to tour with them, how to set them up and switch during the show and all of this kind of thing. I'll let him sort of maybe describe a little bit more of what the role is of a guitar tech, but I thought that would be super interesting because both of us want to know, and I'm sure there's plenty more people out there that also would be benefiting from some of his knowledge. So without further ado, let's jump into the chat with Michael.
Something to scream about.
All right, so welcome, Michael. Thank you so much, man, for taking the time to join us here on the podcast. Michael is, as I said, a touring guitar technician. So, yeah, what's up, man? Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me. So I have started doing that now, kind of as my main job. Really, it's like I've not worked at the usual place I've worked for probably 8 months now, because I've just been on the road the whole time, kind of thing, which is pretty sick.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I love it.
That's so cool, man. So, I know a few people, including ourselves, don't really know the full extent of what a guitar tech is or what the role of a guitar tech is. So maybe can you just run us through your experience of what sort of roles you've had to take on and do for bands?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of those jobs where, because it's so sort of like behind the scenes, it is really kind of hard to really work out what someone does. I mean, you go to a show and you'll see, a tech obviously passing guitars to people, but that's probably 5% of what I do, really. It was funny because I went to a 10-year high school reunion recently, and everyone was asking what I've been doing, and it was really hard to explain. When you explain to someone who kind of doesn't sound like you're doing very much.
Yeah.
12 to 18 hours a day and completely flat out, and you don't really stop. The best way I've sort of found to sort of describe it is being a one-man Formula One pit crew for guitars that the band's using, kind of thing. But obviously it also covers all of the the rig and all the, I guess all the stage-based audio. And I mean, I guess it's the same depending on who the band is and how much crew they have on, you'll obviously take on other worlds. Like for some bands I work for, I do guitar tech and drum tech and kind of look after both worlds because someone's for drums kind of thing. In other situations, we have a drum tech and I'll have to look after like a bit of playback and monitors as well as guitars. So it's sort of just like, as being a tech, I guess, is just sort of like, doing all the stuff that usually the people in the band would have to do if they didn't have someone to do it kind of thing, and just keeping all their stuff in working order and making sure it's all communicating to each other. And if there's a problem during the set as well, like you're the person responsible for fixing it kind of thing. It's really, there's a lot that comes into it kind of thing. It's more than just tuning guitars, which it might seem to sort of the observer kind of thing,
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, bro, I think like you said, to sum it up into one sort of thing is very, very difficult. Because we've chatted to we had Mel on the podcast who was talking about sort of doing TM stuff and tour managing, and she was saying that everyone sort of jumps in as part of the crew behind the scenes and sort of helps out with whatever everyone's got skills for. And obviously, I'm sure being playing guitar or like being involved with music in some way really helps your job to be able to understand problems and things like that, and be able to sort of work out what to do when things go wrong and things like that. So
I definitely couldn't do this job if I hadn't played guitar for sort of as long as I had. And I played in a band for a number of years as well, and that really, I think, is essential, because you kind of need to know what you would have liked on stage kind of thing. You're kind of just trying to like stay one step ahead of the artist and going, oh, like, I don't know, the strings look a bit old, I might change them before they even notice that they're old kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, just it's a lot of that sort of, just sort of putting out fires before the artist even notices that they're there kind of thing, and you sort of need that experience, I think, to
seems like an integral role for sure, especially in regards to making the live performance seamless. And I could just tell from even just what you've said there, if we were ever playing a show that was really important, it may be our biggest show, might be getting paid the most money in front of the biggest crowd. It'd be like having that reassurance that you're there side stage looking after things. That would be such a worth it process. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is, as bands get bigger, that's why they get more and more crew on. They really need to just solely concentrate on just performing, and they don't need to be like halfway through a song being like, oh no, like what's going on over there,
Yeah.
It's like when you start out as a local band, obviously you just use the house sound guy because you maybe aren't making enough money to pay for someone better, and it doesn't really matter at that stage. It's more, you're just getting out there in front of people kind of thing. But as you obviously evolve, you'll get your own sound guy, and then you might get your own lighting guy, get your own TM, and then you might be like, all right, we need some more like stage techs and guitar techs and drum techs or whatever now, because these shows are getting bigger. And like you said, you want it to, if it's a really important thing, you don't want things going wrong, I've actually been there and experienced that, and I know how bad that is. So I know how integral it becomes as those, as the responsibility gets bigger kind of thing,
Yeah, for sure, bro. I think I might go touch into some of those stories a little bit later on. But first, just going back a little bit, you're mentioning like sort of bands, once they get to a certain stage, that's when they might be looking at getting someone like yourself to come along and help them. Is there, apart from obviously being able to afford that, is there any sort of things that you would say are an indication that it's time to sort of reach out and get somebody? Because I know that some bands will go a long time without even getting one. Some bands, it's like, yep, I need someone straight away. What have you seen are the things that people really need help with first and foremost?
Well, it's like, it's like you said, you've seen, bands that are maybe further along that don't have anyone, and then, bands that are less further along who do have someone. It really comes down to your priority as a band, I guess, and like what's important to you. Like if you're willing to sink the money into putting the best show possible on, you might do that Whereas other people might be like, I can just manage myself. I'm actually like, if you have someone in the band who kind of built your whole rig for you or whatever, and they're like confident enough that they know everything that's going on. And they're like, I'll just do it myself, to save that money that can be put into other things. It really just depends sort of what they're trying to go for, I guess, kind of thing. I don't think there's a wrong time. Like if you can afford it, there's not really a wrong time to have a tech. Because I think, again, the more crew that you can have on that are worrying about the technical problems for you, the more you can put on better shows. And I think ultimately in the long run, it's an investment, because the better shows you play, the bigger your fan base will grow, the bigger
Absolutely.
shows it all
Yeah.
just snowballs on like that. So it just depends at what point you're willing to bite the bullet and kind of get on that extra help kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you mess around with the cab and amp settings and any amp sims and stuff, or do you let the guitarist artists themselves sort of know their tone?
Yeah, how much influence do you get to have over what's going on?
It really depends. I think in a lot of situations, stuff like that is more like, I don't know, like I feel like a lot of guitarists they're like, no, I want, it to sound a certain way kind of thing. And then the front of house guy might be like, I need it to sound like this so I can mix it properly out of front of house. So very rarely will I feel the need to input on stuff like that. I feel like anything audio like that, again, like as the team grows, there are more and more people who are responsible for a specific thing. And if there's someone there responsible for that, there's no need for me to like step on there.
But if there's no input, you're like you're in there. Like if the
Exactly. It really depends. I mean, I feel like all the people I've worked for so far have been well and truly on top of that stuff. So, it's more about the maintenance of their actual instruments and cables and the way things are plugged in. That stuff I'm more kind of keen to like have an input in kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, you might you figure out a new way of doing something or seeing someone else do it, and you can bring that to the table and help some other band out with that.
You see it happen quite often too, where people have everything plugged in, and then they go to start the show, and the bass just isn't. They're picking it, and there's no sound, and it's like they start panicking. Why isn't my guitar working? Why isn't my bass working? So yeah, you're just like, Leroy Jenkins, you just run on there.
Yeah, that.
Mm.
So, bro, how do you sort of look after all of the gear like on the road? Like I'll sort of give people a little. Maybe I can snapshot off your Instagram, but a sort of one of the pictures of one of the rigs that you've got, where you have your little station behind the stage, and you've got all your tools, and like you've got the set lists and all the guitars there and stuff. Is that like, do you just sort of, you're in charge of packing that all up and taking it along on the road and setting it up and looking after it? Go into a little bit of the details of that if you can, man.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that little tech bench that I've got there sort of, aside from actually being a surface to put guitars down on and work on it, it literally is kind of like a mobile workshop kind of thing. I guess it's got everything in there that I might need to make adjustments or repair things, or, there's like, I've got like glues and actually one of the main repair. I mean, there's a lot of things you can't really repair on the road. You kind of have to just like do your best to keep things afloat, like really major work. Often there's not much you can do without taking it to an actual luthier, but one that happens a lot of the time is like you'll pull out the strap pins and it'll just rip a chunk of wood out. So I've got like all this sort of like MacGyver-y solution stuff. I've just got like a little thing of toothpicks and some like wood glue. And I guess if that happens, you just have to shove the hole full of toothpicks and wood glue and then like try and re-drill a hole. Otherwise, like, just a little thing, like random things like that you'll pick up along the way to like just, it's just kind of like a pelican full of like contingencies, I guess, it's kind of what's there. But yeah, so there's that workbench there. I got a few tuners on it and stuff. A few other things. Again, just to like during the show, be able to like check that things are all working and stuff. And then obviously I've got like I'll usually have like a rack of guitars that are there to switch out for different tunings, and different songs might have a different tone or something. They need, like might need single coils for one song and then humbuckers for another, or whatever. And that's usually my little world, depending on what the band is and the way their rig is set up as well. I might have all of their audio stuff over there as well. Like if they have like a big rack of Kempers or something that aren't on stage, I might have them over there so I can quickly fix stuff if something goes wrong or something turns off, or but yeah, it just depends who you're working for. They're for example, like the main band I work for is Northlane, and their quad cortexes are like on the stage on their pedal boards, so I have to there.
Duck down.
So you know the entire set then, what songs come in what order, what exactly what guitar is being used.
You might be hard to see in the photos, but a lot of those set lists will have like a million notes on them.
Yes.
And I need to change what and like what tuning it's in, and then who I have to change first on that song.
Yeah, I've seen like one that said something like John D sharp guitar or something, and you're just like running out or something, or you have to catch Josh's one that he's throwing at you.
Yeah, that's the one I saw of you throwing it or him throwing it to you. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
So I guess that little station is just everything that I might need to draw from during a show and before a show as well. I guess I have to restring all the guitars and stuff, and I've got all the tools in there to do that as quickly and as efficiently as possible, kind of thing.
Are you restringing for every show for a band like that?
With Northlane, like when I first started, I was restringing every single guitar, every single show. I guess again, like when you were asking that question about whether I'll make decisions with regards to their tone and stuff, and I won't do that so much. I guess with regards to looking after their instruments, I'll have more input in that. So I guess I've like kind of managed to negotiate now to maybe restring some guitars less often, but the main ones I'll do every single show for them.
Yeah, wow. And they have their own sort of set string gauges and tensions and things that they like and everything. You don't have any control over that sort of thing?
No, and I think especially with like Northlane, they really know their stuff, and it's like if they had clones of themselves, they could tech for themselves, kind of thing. But obviously they don't. So
yes,
else. So, I'm lucky in that regard. Like it's all set up really well. Those are the gauges I would use on those scale length guitars, kind of thing. So I don't really have to make any calls on stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, sick. In terms of like, sort of like you said before, things going wrong, do you have a couple of apart from like you said the obvious one where the strap comes and breaks off or something like that? What are some top common mistakes, and what are some absolute memorable ones for you?
Yeah, look, it's hard. It's I feel like more stuff goes wrong before the show. Like if you're lucky, you catch it all and manage to frantically sort of like fix it all right before the set starts. A common one that happens is just like, especially when you're touring overseas as well, not to get like too technical on it, but the wireless frequencies that are available in Australia don't always line up with the ones that are available overseas.
Yeah, we researched that.
Yeah.
Use here, half of that frequency might be taken when you go to the US. So like one of the main problems I've had is just like wireless guitars dropping out in places. Like it happens in Australia too. I don't know exactly why, but in certain spots, just the interference is terrible, and you might get like cutting out here and there, and you might have to quickly switch off the wireless onto like a wired cable kind of thing in order to like get through the set or whatever. That's a pretty common one. We upgraded the rig so it doesn't seem to be happening as much, but it's also a new rig.
Yeah. So the same with the in-ears as well, right? Because they go on like radio frequencies and stuff to or wireless.
And we had a lot of on that last US tour we did with Fifra King. We were struggling for ears almost every show. Like we had to, I guess, like scan instead of just using the normal frequency scanner on the in-ears themselves. We had to like get like wireless workbench up at front of house and look for like the frequencies between those frequencies.
Yeah, that weren't being used.
And then it's like some nights we get 4 out of 6 available frequencies. So
yeah, geez.
That one's, it depends really, And again, I guess going back to like when you get crew on and stuff, it's hard because I guess there are really good wireless systems out there which can mitigate all of that stuff, but then the overhead cost of how much that stuff costs, you can't always get that top level stuff, and you have to sort of settle for somewhere in the middle where those things crop up time to time. But again, I guess it's why you have someone there to deal with that stuff. Like, I can maybe tune in a new frequency middle of the set if someone's really,
It's really, you're really bringing to light all of the issues and how important your role is. Like, I already knew guitar techs were important, but just hearing you even talk about this is like sparking ideas in my head. I'm like, damn, if I was on tour and I had to worry about all of these issues, I would be so stressed, and I'd be like, you'd probably not gone off much sleep and blah, blah, blah. So it would make me play like crap. So like, your job is actually so important. Like, all of the crew's job is.
Definitely. And I think ultimately, like, skills and knowledge aside, a huge portion of the, I guess, of like any crew position is to kind of be a bit of a buffer between the issues and the band. So like, for a tour manager, for example, they're dealing with all the venues and all that sort of stuff, and kind of like, just so the band can just like sit in the green room and just chill and prep themselves for the show. They're not worrying about whether or not like there's, food in the green room on the rider, or all of like just the annoying details are just completely removed from them because someone else is doing that, and just like, I guess,
play the music,
all the technical issues, like it's funny, like some days, I might go up into the green room real quick because I have to like grab something. Everyone's like, "Oh, how's everything going?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely fine. It's gonna be a great show. Like, no worries." Like,
flames behind you.
Problems going wrong, but like, again, it's like you're just trying to like stop them from having a stress about that.
Yeah.
That hopefully they can just walk onto stage, play the show, and walk off, and they won't even realize that like you just got it over the line, kind of.
Yeah. I snapped your guitar before, and I had to go buy a new one.
Playing is another one that was a string snapped about a minute before show start going like straight on, and I had to like get another guitar, quickly tune it into the right tuning, run it back there, hand it to the person. They were like, "Oh, this is the wrong guitar." And I'm like, "No, it's the right guitar for now. Don't worry, I'm on it. It's going to be fine." Just on this guitar, blah, blah, blah. Ran back, quickly restrung, and then when I got that guitar back, because it was like in a different, like the tension on the strings was different because of the tuning it was in. As soon as I tried to tune it back to where it was, it snapped another string. So then it was just like, all that sort of stuff. But again, like, you just, the show has to happen. So whatever you have to do to like make it happen, that's what your job is.
Yeah. It's clever, man.
Cool.
It definitely, I guess the thing is like, you're always learning, which is what I really like about it, is like, it's never, no matter how many shows you do, every issue that is going to go wrong is one that you've never encountered before,
And and like when we were chatting with Nick, he was mentioning about being able to sort of move past like errors or mistakes and things that happen, and try and mentally just like kind of forget about it and just move on to the next thing, and so that you don't let the whole thing come crashing down from one little error.
It's definitely really hard, that particular like mental game of it, like because it shakes you. Like, if something really, because you spend like hours and hours during the day before the show trying to make everything perfect. When something still goes wrong, that like slips through the cracks kind of thing, it does like get to you, and you're like, fuck, because you want it to be a perfect show for everybody. But it's like, really being able to compartmentalize that and be like, I'll worry about that later. I've got to be present, because otherwise I'm going to make more mistakes if I'm like flustered or like, chasing kind of thing. It's a really funny, there's so much to it that you never feel part of it, that, like, and like you said before, like being on tour and like not sleeping very much because you like got such a hectic touring schedule, and you're like tired and exhausted, and you've been doing massive like 18-hour days back to back. On that last tour, we did like 9 shows in a row, and I remember like 7th or 8th show, I was just like, I don't know how I can like get out of bed this morning, and you just like somehow like compose yourself and like just get the job done still, and still keep that like being present, even though there's like a million things going on. It's funny. It's a funny game like that. But it's just like anything in the music industry, it's the same for bands. You're in that same mindset. You're like, I don't even know how I can get on stage and perform tonight, but you somehow still do, But so much extra to it that you might not.
It's very true, right? And that kind of stuff, like sort of being integral in that mental game as well for the band and for everyone in the team to try and stay positive and keep everybody on this positive energy. So like one person might be feeling all right, and it's their job to sort of, you know, corral everyone into getting up and going and doing it and stuff.
Sure. Absolutely. And
Um,
I mean, I think if you've got a good team around you, you all support each other in that. And it can be that, because as soon as like one person like starts having a shit one, it really just like spreads like a, you know,
Tell me about it.
so quickly. So it's like that side of it is, it's like almost like you're like 10% like tuning guitars, and then like, you know, maybe 50% just like shielding people from other things, and then like the remaining like 4% like a psychologist almost.
Yeah, bro, that's right. And we sort of we touched on kind of like how you make things easier for the band, but like how can the guitarist or the band make things easier for you as a tech and make you go, wow, that was a sick experience touring with that band because of XYZ.
I think the biggest thing, like in any band or crew situation anyway, regardless, is like understanding that you're all like, no matter what your role is, you're ultimately all there for the same goal, which is to put the best show on possible, kind of thing. And I feel really lucky that all the bands I've worked with definitely view it that way, and everyone's treated equally. Everyone like eats where everyone else eats, everyone sleeps where everyone else sleeps. It's like you feel like a big team, and it doesn't matter what each person's role is. I think that's a really important thing. I think just in general, anyone in the music industry, you know, like doesn't matter if you're the promoter or, you know, you're the person at the venue, or, you know, you're in one of the bands, or you're part of the crew or whatever, or you're house tech or whatever. Everyone's there ultimately to make sure that the crowd has a great experience. So just remembering that like no one is really better than anyone else, even though people have different levels of responsibility or whatever, I think is
Yeah, very, very true.
the other thing, I guess, like that's most important, or that makes my life easier as a tech, is just like communication. Again, I feel very lucky that everyone I've worked with is very communicative. Like they'll all be like, hey, I need this to be like this way, or oh, can you do this differently next time? Or, you know, because ultimately I want to do the best job I can. So the more information I get given, the better I can facilitate that. If they don't tell you what they need, it's really hard to sort of like be like, oh, like, do I do like this for you? And they're like, oh, I don't care. And you're like, oh, what about like this? And they're like, oh, I don't care. It really doesn't help at all. You're just like, but ultimately I think that's you know, you've got to keep them happy. It doesn't really matter if they're right or wrong, you know, the artist. Like if they're like, oh, you know, I need it like this, even if you're like, that's kind of not a great way to do that, I'll do it. Give them what they want so that they feel centered and happy, and then they go and play a good show, I guess, ultimately, you know.
Yeah, cool.
I think communication and just everyone working as a team are the things that make the job as easy as possible. And that's what I find the most rewarding about it, is like you get to the end of a show and you just like see how much the crowd's like buzzing, and you're like, I helped that, you know.
Yeah, bro. You're a part of that.
So,
Absolutely.
that's really good. It's honestly probably one of the most rewarding things I've like ever done, really, honestly, in my time in the music industry, I guess. It's like, yeah.
That's very sick. Yeah, you sort of seeing people have like one of the best nights of their lives, like literally just like absolutely loving the whole thing. And you're like, yes, you know, you've, as a team, like you said, everyone individually comes together to put on this show, and it's like really changing people's like lives, which is like, it seems like a bit, you know, weird to say, but it's so true.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, like, I just always try and think of all of the great shows I've ever been to and how much I enjoyed them and how much it meant to me, you know.
Yeah.
It's just like, I think if everyone goes into it going, you know, how can we, because like if I think about the best shows I've ever gone to, I wasn't like looking around going, oh, like that lighting looks sick, or, or you know, it's just you're so
It's an experience.
captured by the moment that you're not even paying attention to that stuff. And I guess ultimately, if everything's going right, no one will notice any of that stuff anyway, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember when Carnival played Unify a few years back, from it was it was like the first time I'd ever seen them live, and it was like one of the most incredible shows I'd like been to at that point. And like from what I'd heard, like since that, it's like apparently it was just like riddled with technical difficulties. But they're like such a good band that they just like they had like click track dropout, they had like backing tracks,
Wow.
Well,
and they all this sort of like crazy shit was going on. But like the band and crew was so professional that like no one in the crowd even noticed. And it's like I feel like I'm particularly perceptive of stuff like that. Like I'll usually notice when stuff like that is a bit, awry or whatever, but they just managed, like they added extra guitar parts to fill in where there was like supposed to be synths and all this
Wow.
crazy shit. Like you wouldn't have known watching the show that it was like, plagued with difficulties, but that's the thing. It's like
That's really clever. It's just their ability to think on their
Adapt,
feet and just
yeah.
adapt and
this isn't great, but it is what it is, so we just got to keep going. And like,
yeah.
it was honestly so much more. It was very impressive to begin with, and then to find all of that out after the fact, it was like even more impressive.
Yeah, totally. Because you didn't even realize, and as you say, us as band members or musicians or whatever, we are really perceptive and sort of listening for those types of things. I remember seeing, I've probably spoken about it, but there was a video of a guy drumming and his click track dropped out. So the tech ran up and he was tapping his leg and just showing the metronome. And I was like, that's why he's got that tech. Like that is so,
And he was so quick too. He knew straight away. He was like, boom. Within a couple seconds, he fucking sprinted there, and he was like, he saved the day. He was like, he's tapping his foot.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my god.
That's the thing is like, I guess you're trying to stay one step ahead of everything that is going on. Like you have a couple of backup plans, whether that's like spare like B rigs for the main rig. If one goes down, you quickly like switch it to the other one, so there's not much of a dropout. Or you have spare guitars, so if a string breaks, you just quickly it's just like staying at one step ahead of whatever issue could possibly come up or whatever.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. So now, so backtracking you a little bit about you and sort of your journey with guitar teching. You said you're now doing it like full time. How did you sort of start getting into it, and sort of was it a conscious decision? I want to be a guitar tech, or was it like this? Let's just try and be involved in the industry and et cetera, et cetera.
So I guess so obviously, like sort of as I mentioned before, like I was playing in bands and stuff previously, but I guess like a few years back, I started working at this guitar shop and backline company in Melbourne called Deluxe Guitars. And I guess working in the backline component, which is backline for anyone that, maybe doesn't know, is like, I guess just like all the higher equipment. I guess like, if a band comes from overseas, they're not going to fly their like, amps and cabs and stuff across with them. So they'll come across and then hire that from a company. So yeah, just, doing backline tech stuff through that company, I guess. Like I realized that there was so much more out there. Like there's so many jobs in the music industry that, again, it's like everyone knows you can be a sound guy, you can be a lighting person or whatever, you know what I mean? But a lot of those smaller jobs, well, not smaller, but you know what I mean? Like those less in the limelight jobs, actually like equal important to the show going ahead, I guess. And I guess as part of working there, like lots of other people who are like have been or still are guitar techs work there, so guitar or drum techs or anything like that. So I guess just like realizing that there was this whole other job that maybe I could do out there. And I've always really loved my gear and all my, like setting stuff up and trying to like make the show run smoothly or like better, or program the MIDI changes so you don't have to press a button. All that stuff. Like I always loved doing that stuff. And so I guess like when I sort of decided to sort of stop playing in bands, I was like, maybe I should give this a go, because I really think it'd suit me. It'd kind of be all of the parts of being in a band that I enjoyed, minus the actual like playing component, which, again, it's like I was saying, having to do all of that at the same time is so stressful. And now it's like I just have to worry about this one thing and I have to worry about playing. Someone else has to do that job. It's like, it's really good. And I guess, I just sort of, through the network I'd made at Deluxe, and also, I guess, in my time playing in bands, I sort of, just had the network to be able to sort of, hit up a couple bands, or, someone was like, oh, we need a tech, like, would you be happy to do it? And I guess you just start taking a few of those jobs on, and then as you do more and more, and not like make a name for yourself, but I guess like the more that people know that you're out there doing that, they're like, oh, maybe we should give them a try or whatever, and then I guess it just sort of like snowballed. And
Yeah.
it's word of mouth, man. That's how we got started in producing. I mean, I'm assuming you're the same.
Yeah.
You just started music production.
Yeah, I feel like it's the best way to do anything really is word of mouth, and it's just you're if you're gonna get more and more jobs, it's purely like how hard you decide to work and how much you apply yourself and stuff. And I think it's kind of the only way you can do it, really. I guess anything in the music industry, you just got to get out there.
And be in the right place to receive that opportunity and stuff.
Yeah.
So true. And as you said, you can now make it your full-time gig. Like that's how you make your money. And like, is that
working at Deluxe, and I would love to be working there, but I have not had the time to even do a shift there in the last 8 months. So I didn't for it to be times it is, and now it is, and I've stopped.
That's great. Yeah, no, that is that's the dream, man. That's to be involved in something that you can we want to have our full-time occupation under music, and it's a hard one because there's not much money to be made in the music industry really, unless and it is coming from those shows and things like that. So as a band, our side of things is we're looking at how much we can make for the show, and then how do we then divvy that up between the team and who gets what. I've heard a few different. Obviously, if you're happy to talk about this, I've seen a few different people about how they pay their team. We don't have to talk specifics, but more so about do they sort of work on a per tour basis where they have, let's just work out how much money we made on this tour and then pay everyone evenly, or is it more you're going to get this flat rate to guarantee you can pay your mortgage for the next 8 weeks and whatever we make on top of that is ours?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it really depends. Again, it comes down to, what level the band's at in terms of the budget that they have available to them. And, so I guess smaller bands who really desperately need a tech but maybe can't really afford one might come to some sort of arrangement with the person to this is what we can give you. And I guess ultimately it's anything freelance, you kind of, you decide what you are willing to agree to or not agree to, I guess, definitely I've done certain tours potentially for a band where, maybe if it's if they're coming from overseas or something, I know that they're already pressed for budget. So I might, agree to slightly less, because the same token, as much as exposure is a dirty word, I think it's really important at the same time to get some of those experiences that will improve you and your skills. And then maybe also, it's oh, you work for such and such a band,
you're building up a resume.
Whatever, financial gain you don't necessarily make, potentially there might be something else that is equally as valuable in the long run. It's kind of an investment kind of thing. But yeah, I guess so as you get a little bit further up, maybe, you might be offered a fixed day rate. So your day will be a certain amount of money. But again, it's it depends. You can have one day where it's actually a pretty cruisy day, and you did all the restrings yesterday, and doors aren't till whatever time, and you end up only working for say 6 hours out of the 12 hours that you're in the venue or whatever. And then other days it's an 18-hour day, and it doesn't, the day rate ends up not being that much money in the end because you've done an 18-hour day. It really depends. But I guess I think that's kind of a relatively fair way for it to sort of be dealt with, because then also it puts the onus on me as well to go, well, they're paying me this much for the day, I better that amount of work kind of thing, but then I guess I've got friends who tech for much bigger bands and stuff with crazy budgets and stuff like that, and they might either just pay a weekly or monthly rate and be we give you this much whether we have 10 shows or we have 30 shows,
right.
I guess even further to that, bands will pay their crew a retainer, so they'll be paid whether they're at home or whether they're...
it's like salary almost. Yeah,
pretty much. I guess it really just depends on what the band or artist that you're working with has available to them in terms of what can can be done,
Yeah, that's perfect, bro. That's just kind of like an insight into what it's like, because there are so many different situations out there, and to be able to know how to sort of approach it, if you are somebody that is a tech and wants to get some work, and how to sort of approach a band and things like this. So
Absolutely. And I think it's really like for anyone, I guess the thing I would like to say is like, if you think you might be interested in doing it, like now is definitely the time to give it a crack, because I guess like with the, all the shows not happening for the last couple of years or whatever, everyone's trying to play a show at the same time right now, and there's a finite number of crew, and a lot of the people who already, were available are already well and truly booked out for the entire year. And bands, like the amount of times I'll get a message, that I've been sent, that's probably 10 or so people down the line. And they're like, can you do this show like on the weekend or next week or something? And I'm like, I can't, like, let me hit up a few of my friends. And then like, I'll message 5 to 10 people and they'll be like, sorry, dude, I'm booked out, like,
wow.
there's a lot of, I mean, I feel very lucky I feel like I've gotten into it at the right time for exactly that reason. Like a lot of the opportunities I've managed to get, I think usually it would have taken a lot longer for me to get to where I've managed to get to, because of that sort of like vacuum of crew. There's just not enough crew to go around. So like, if you're curious and want to try it out, I definitely, strongly suggest like, just have a crack at it. Realistically, like you only really like learn if you can swim, if you throw yourself in the deep end kind of thing, and it's the best way to learn. Nothing's ever perfect. Like everyone makes mistakes. I make plenty of mistakes. People I know make plenty of mistakes who are like working for crazy big bands and stuff. But it's like, it's the only way you learn. And literally, like sometimes I like when a show is a bit of a clanger, because if you have like a run of like 10, 15 shows where everything's seamless, you try not to let yourself get complacent and be like, oh, everything's gonna be fine. And then you get that show where it goes wrong all at once. Like, and we had a clanger in Detroit actually, where everything was fine during sound check. And then when we came to changeover, like the drum boxes weren't outputting any sound to front of house. So there were no drums, like almost like
wow,
the entire show was going to have to get called off, like our entire set, because like no noise was coming from the drums. And like, just like it was some crazy like firmware update. There was something.
It was always something silly.
Someone else uploaded the wrong thing to our drum box by mistake instead of theirs or something. It was like a whole thing, but like you need those things to learn. Well, okay, like maybe we don't let this happen, or like maybe we make sure this is double checked before we get there, all that sort of stuff. Like you kind of need to have those mistakes. But yeah, just like get out there and give it a crack. Like I think, like I was going to say before, I guess like half of these guitars that are over there, just like I ended up just like, I don't know, like I was like, I might work for a band who have a Floyd Rose in their guitar, and I've never really used Floyd Roses before in my life because I used to hate them, So I was like, I'm going to get a Floyd Rose guitar and just like work on it, pull it apart, put it back together again, like work out how it all works. Just if you're interested in that sort of stuff, just like sit there and tinker around. Like those skills are all so valuable. I started building like DIY like pedal kits as well, because I was
mad
soldering, because I like don't really know how to solder at all. So I just started like buying these like AliExpress like $30 like sitting there, like soldering them all together and stuff, and I ended up making a whole like pedal board of pedals I built myself kind of thing.
Yeah, mad.
If you do that stuff and you're passionate about it, like it's literally a job of just tinkering with guitars and gear all day long. Like if that sounds appealing to you, just give it a crack. Like I can't.
That's so cool.
Highly for how sick of a job this is.
Get out there and do it. Yeah.
Get out there and do it. It's the time to do it. People need techs, and there's just not enough. So if you're like even slightly curious, just go for it.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I think that's a super valuable insight from you, and I'm hoping that like it's inspired me to be a guitar tech, and I don't even play guitar. So you know what? Might give up the drums. Might just like start running away.
You don't necessarily have to give anything else up in order to do it either. Like it can be great, like you said, it's like it's hard when you're like in a band, you're like you only get a certain amount of money from from the show or whatever. You like got to divvy up in order to do things, and you got to reinvest that money back into the band in order to like forward it or whatever. Like everyone who's playing music up to a certain point has some sort of side hustle, you know. And
Yeah.
what I really liked working at Deluxe, for example, was at least my side hustle to earn money for the band was also in the music industry. So I felt like everything I was learning was super valuable, and so much of what I learned how to like build looms and like set up guitars. So I was sort of like building like cable runs and like setting up our guitars and stuff, because ultimately, you know, all that knowledge will help. Again, if you can do a lot of that stuff, you won't need to pay someone else to do it, kind of thing, whether it's taking you for a setup or paying a tech or whatever, you know. You don't have to stop doing your thing just so you can also I guess it just depends, you know, like if you
it's all about how much you put the time into it, eh?
Yeah, but if you've got like a month between tours where you've got not a lot going on, you're not recording or something, like, you know, if there's a few shows going on, just get out there and make a show or two. Again, it's like that, everything you'll learn and the people you'll meet and, you know, and the networking opportunities, it's like it'll all come back into whatever else you're doing. You know, it's like I just think everyone should give it a crack, honestly. Like, you know.
That's so cool, bro. No, very, very, very wicked, man. And I think we'll probably wrap it up there and just finish on that high note, because that was really, really well-rounded. And I think if anybody wants to follow you or find you or whatever, where can they go? I mean, I found you on Instagram, but
I guess my Instagram, I don't really use anything else, and that's just like I just use it to sort of catalog all the things that like
cool.
I've done. And I like looking back at it going, oh, that was a great show, like blah blah blah, you know.
No, sick. We'll whack that down as your contact.
Yeah, definitely do that for sure. And I guess like if anyone is keen on learning more about the tech side of things or wants to get into it but like doesn't really know how, whatever, like feel free to like send me a message and I'll help.
That's wicked.
Wherever I can, because I only got to sort of where I've managed to get to so far from all the people who've like helped me or like given me. I'm always asking people questions. I'm always hitting them up, going like, "What do you do when this happens?" You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, if anyone.
That's amazing of you, bro. Thank you. Because that's something we're big on. So like, really appreciate you putting yourself out for that. So yeah, thank you so much again, bro, for taking the time to come and chat to us. And we'll hopefully keep in contact and chat soon.
Yeah, please do. My pleasure.
Sweet as. Thanks, bro.
Something to scream about.
So that was Michael. Absolutely fascinating conversation. And yes, thanks again for coming on, bro. What did you think, bro? What was some highlights and takeaways from what he said?
Yeah, that was really cool. Definitely. I mean, we already knew what their jobs are and what they do and stuff, but to hear the in depth of, you know, how much they actually are running around behind the scene. Like he said, it's not as simple as like, hey, I tuned your guitar for you. There you go.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, that's a little bit of it. But, you know, having that reassurance to have someone there that you know, like what we said with the guy that was drumming and the metronome just stopped. And he's like, I'm in the middle of a show. I can't stop. Yeah. And you have someone there that's like, bang. And they've already been analyzing everything in real time and having that safety net of someone, you know, to keep the seamlessness of the show and the performance. Very important job role, really cool. And if we ever have enough money, we'll probably have one on someday.
Yeah, it's really cool. So if anyone's looking to get into guitar teching and wants some exposure experience, then you know who to contact.
Oh, no.
No, I thought it was super valuable because like not too many people talk about these important roles behind the scenes, and like, you know, too often you just see the bands up there and playing the sick show and then they get all the credit, and it's like, yo, there's a whole team behind here that like is just people that are just generally unknown. And I think that's why I thought it'd be super cool to shine a light on what Michael does and show that there are other roles where you can be really fulfilled in the music industry as well. Like you could have wanted to be in a band your whole life or something, but you might be a little bit sort of stage like shy or something, and then you figure out, oh, actually, I just like to be behind the scenes helping run the shows. I can still be involved. I still get, like Michael said about how good the feeling is, fulfillment. So it's like, why not have a look at all these other roles in the thing? I still am going to love to play drums, but I might learn how to restring a guitar every now and then because that was pretty inspiring. So yeah. anyway, any last things you want to say before we wrap that up?
No, really, man. I mean, we've shared everything that the band's doing. You guys know we're in a writing phase. Just trying to get our sound really honed in on. We're still looking for a guitarist in the meantime to play some shows live, and we're going to keep releasing music, keep releasing visuals, keep releasing podcasts, and we're just going to keep doing our thing.
Sweet. Well, we'll see you again in another episode. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching.
See ya.
Bye.